provide ID to speak to your city council representative or any of the city council members that we need them to support this bill. And especially Valon, we really need to hear from you.
I don't know if you, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if you have been in touch. There's a group of clergy. We were already once kicked out of chambers for protesting the budget cuts. And the same group of clergy, and it's a wide coalition of clergy of different, including Jewish and Muslim, is also a group that you need to perhaps get in touch with, because they'll be able to put pressure on their own council representative in effect. And if you go to churches and you have form letters given out and people start writing, or sending emails or calling, I mean, they will feel their own positions are in jeopardy if they don't pay attention.
Okay, we'll connect afterwards.
Will you also just mention where on the 27th at 11:30?
Yeah, so right on the Broadway side of City Hall, in the lower part of Manhattan. So it's actually located at 250 Broadway, and that's going to be just on the side of City Hall is where we'll be at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday, September 27th. That'll be a rally, and then afterwards, for those that are able to join us, they'll be headed to do lobby visits. And for any of you that are interested and did sign that form, there are some trainings that you need to go to be able to go to the visit, just to be able to talk about the bills and talk about the ways it affects you and your community. So we'll be in touch.
And just one other question, the 13th, the event on the 13th, stop first, is
Oh, yes.
what time and where?
Well, you're gonna have,
It's at 4 different places.
it's 4 different, did you bring the flyers?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
flyers,
they're on
we have little flyers, and it will tell you the time and place that some people are gonna gather, but we want it, that's what we wanted, but we want, yes, it's on the back, you could just, we have it, we could even give it to you, but it's gonna be on the 13th, that's gonna be an action, and what we're asking everybody, it doesn't matter where you're at 6 o'clock, especially at 6 o'clock, we're asking everyone to blow the whistle. It doesn't matter if you are at home, just go by your window, anywhere that you are at 6 o'clock. But we're also going to have places of gathering where people are going to gather at a certain time where they're going to blow the whistle. But we want people to blow the whistle all day long. And after the 13th, we want people to keep the whistle. And every time that you see a cop doing something, blow the whistle. Let them know that you're watching and you're there. That's the point of blowing the whistle. We want people to blow the whistle because we want to end a stop and frisk. And like I said, some people think it's the best thing that happened in New York City, but it's illegal. It's a violation of our rights.
Can I just also make a plug also on the 13th? People's Justice is doing a cop watch training at 6:30 in Jackson Heights. Do we have flyers? Yeah. There are flyers there, so you can blow the whistle at 6 and then come to the training and learn how to deal with the cops when they come up to you and tell you that it's illegal for you to blow your whistle.
Stace, thank you, I just want to get all the dates down. Oh, I'm sorry, I said I'd come back to you and then I didn't, and then we'll go to Stace.
Right, well, this is really quickly, and it's for, I guess, your son and Ian? Okay, like CPR, I think CPR is one of the best things we could have ever done to counter illegal activity by NYPD. However, what I'm hearing is that it's systemic and the repercussions ultimately follow you through a long ways. Now, we've got the ball rolling with the NYPD on the street level, but what about the DA? What about the so-called legal aids that don't really represent you but represent the opposition? What about the judges that's violating your rights by sentencing you 3 times for one crime because you didn't know your rights? What about holding all those people up the hierarchy accountable? And is there anything like on the table, like a strategy that we might have to counter that? Because you can't counter NYPD and then turn away and look away from the rest, because they have constituents, they have friends, so if they can't get us on the street level You know, who's to say we won't be in there for not paying the ticket? And, gotcha, now, remember, you know, and then you're going through the same thing all over and over and over again. So the problem is not just on the street level, it's up the chimney now.
Do I have an answer?
We actually,
You know,
Darius might have
I think it's
an addendum.
the bad news is legally, unfortunately, you can't really do anything about the lawyers because there's this thing called prosecutorial immunity, which is a terrible, terrible thing that the Supreme Court has kind of developed over decades to basically say that prosecutors now can't be held responsible for almost any kind of dishonest, terrible stuff they do if they're acting in their capacity as prosecutors. You may have heard last year there was this case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court for a man in Louisiana who was on death row for 19 years because the prosecutors in New Orleans deliberately withheld evidence that would have shown he was innocent. And so he sued, and originally he won a $14 million verdict, which was thrown out by the U.S. Supreme Court, and our friend Justice Thomas, who's always been a champion of the little man, wrote that opinion basically saying that no, you can't hold prosecutors responsible for this. So that's the bad news. But what I would say is the good news is that DAs, as far as I know, in this city are elected. So if you don't like what the DA's office is doing, I think we can think about that, campaigns organizing against DAs who we think are corrupt and throw them out of office. I mean, I think at a local level that's possible. We're talking about if we can change the NYPD, I think we could change the DA's office too. So,
Because of stuff.
yeah.
Chief, you want to address this directly?
yeah, on that issue, I think both of you hit on a key point here. Because, sorry he's not in this room, but a good example currently is our brother Joseph Jazz Hayden. Now Joseph Jazz Hayden didn't only become a target because of his cop watch activity. When he took the governor to court about re-enfranchising ex-offenders, I submit to you, that's when he became a target. Talking about upending the whole political apparatus from upstate and empowering downstate. And Joseph Jazz Hayden became a target then. But to fast forward and compared to what she's saying about how systemic. So now we have a targeted brother in our struggle with a souvenir baseball bat and a penknife that doesn't exceed 4 fingers facing 2 to 7. Just oppose that with one cop out of a cartel who's interstate delivering guns, stolen slot machines, and bootleg cigarettes who gets maximum 4 years. And you would think that the federal government would have brought RICO against this cop to make him tell on his cronies, but instead he fell on the sword, got 4 years from a federal prosecutor who we thought would be more accountable because he's not elected, he's appointed forever. So back to my sister's question, where do the people get justice?
So I also want to jump in and sort of take a step back from it, because I think that the issue of stop and frisk, which stop and frisk is just one police tactic, right? It's just one example of really messed up, discriminatory, abusive, violent policing. But it's very clear that you can look at that one little tactic and then it becomes very clear how it's part of a department that's part of a system that is targeting certain people every step of the way. So I think that the sort of movement answer is that our movement, which is the anti-police violence movement or the stop and frisk movement, depending on how you talk about it, needs to be in alliance with and needs to be in solidarity with the immigrant rights movement and the anti-ESCOM movement. And also we need to start building also with the folks who are doing prison reform or prison abolition stuff. And it then needs to expand out, like CPR as a campaign will probably not address all of these issues, but what we can do is start to build solidarity in a meaningful way with other movements.
And I think Occupy is a part of that too, personally, because it's about inequality. And it's not just about class inequality, even though that's sort of the front piece of Occupy. It's about racial and class inequality, at least for some of us.
Right.
Stacy, yeah, right? Stacy, I'm sorry.
Piggyback on what Mr. Rice just said, what we as a whole society have to look at and readdress is the indemnity clause which allows judges, prosecutors, and cops to get away with murder. If they can't do that, then perhaps we can put a lid on stop and frisk to some degree.
Stacy?
First, I want to thank the panel members for coming out. Really appreciate you coming out this evening and spending your time. I have a couple questions, I think mainly really for the two people on the left. Excuse me, because I forgot their names. You spoke earlier too about community members being involved and kind of paying attention and watching what's going on with cops when they stop people. So I guess I wanted to speak to what are your rights as someone watching an arrest, because if the cop says, okay, you have to go, and you're like, oh, I guess I have to go, the cops don't, like, do you have to? So if you could speak to when you're watching an arrest, what are your rights? Also, I think in your introduction, Michelle mentioned, sir, about panhandling, because I work around Grand Central, and they're always the cops, like, you know, speaking to homeless people, saying stuff, and I saw them once go up to a guy, and I was watching, but I didn't know how much either I could say something or I could even hang around, so it's kind of a dual question to that. And just before I turn it over, I just want to say, also, I'm with Occupy Astoria, and that if you have any materials to events that you're having, that to make sure that they get them handed over so that we could put it, for instance, on our website as a review of tonight's activities. We could say, hey, here are some things coming up that these organizations are dealing with. So if you do have handouts, or for something that you don't have a handout, if you could just maybe pass it to us afterwards. But if one of you wouldn't mind addressing those questions.
Sister here, because we're training, could tell you about the dimensions and perimeters around how you're legally able to monitor police behavior. When she